Hi, my name is John Jester. I'm currently running for the Hancock County Sheriff's position. Currently serve on the Greenfield City Council as the council president, and this is Hancock Rising.
Hello everybody, my name is Elijah Lawler and this is Hancock Rising. I'm joined today by
John Jester.
He's currently serving on Greenfield City Council and he is running for sheriff. We're also joined by Gage. You guys might have seen him from Hoosier Red, Hoosier Blue. So
it's a pleasure to be here joining you for the first of a few more county sheriff candidate interviews.
Yeah, I'm really excited about doing this, John. Thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate you having me in here.
For anyone who is listening right now that doesn't know you, can you give us a little bit of background life story on who you are?
Absolutely. I'm a lifelong resident of Greenfield, born and raised here. Matter of fact, I grew up just 3 or 4 blocks from here. Graduated high school in 1987, went to Vincennes University, got my college degree, came back here in May of 90 and got appointed to the reserves at the Greenfield Police Department. Spent 6 months there and got hired on full-time at the Fortville Police Department, where I spent 2.5 years. At that point, I was hired back here as a full-time patrolman, spent the next 24.5 years here. Was fortunate enough to serve every rank on the department. Ended my career there through retirement after serving 8 years as the chief of police when I went to Community Health Network. I'm married. I've got 3 children, grown. One's in the military. One's just got appointed to the Mishawaka Fire Department's chief's position. And then my daughter works for a vet clinic in Indianapolis. So pretty fortunate to live here. I've, like I said, serving on the police department. So I don't know. I'll answer any question you got.
Well, I guess tied in with that, what parts of your experience do you think are most relevant to this job?
For me, after serving as the chief of police, I also served as the coroner for Hancock County. I spent 16 years in the coroner's office, 8 as the elected coroner. I'm going to come into this with budget experience, personnel management experience. Currently doing that now as the chief of police with the Community Health Network. And I think for the sheriff's role, it's not so much an enforcement position anymore. It's a management position. So it's going to be my job to lead the department, manage the budget, create the budget, work within the budget, make sure the deputies are taken care of where we're providing proper services to our citizens.
Now, we talked a little before the camera started rolling about your experience in the community health department and building that force. Could you tell our listeners maybe a little bit about how you got that program rolling?
Yes. In 2016, like I said, I was working here, loved my job, wasn't ready to retire, but community came in and they made me an offer that I really couldn't confuse. Most people say, oh, money. It wasn't money. It was the fact that they had tasked me with building a police department from the ground up. In 2014, the state legislature passed a law that hospitals could have their own police agency, and community had brought me in to build that agency. And I'll be honest, I saw it as a challenge. At this point, it's much easier to run a department than it is to build a department, because if you think about it, I had to design everything and I say I had a great team helping me, so it's just not I. We had to design policies and procedures. We had to design patches, uniforms, patrol boundaries, everything, even including stationery. So we didn't have an evidence program. I had to design that. And like I said, I cannot stress enough, I had a phenomenal team working with me. And they're the ones that made it possible. I was just lucky enough to drive the ship.
How long would you say? When did you start building that program again? What year?
I was hired over there in September of 2016, and we actually launched the police department in January of 2021. It got pushed back a couple of times due to COVID.
Okay.
As we all know, COVID hit us all. We were really flowing well in 2019 and was prepared to launch in 2020 when COVID really ramped up. And so we had to push it back to 2021. We started the police department with 60 police officers. We're up to almost 110 now. Okay. So it's a large department. And then on top of security staff.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something. So walking into that, was that completely new for you? Was there anything that transferred over from being chief of police here in Greenfield that you were able to use?
Yeah, a lot of it carried over,
Yeah.
especially the management aspect of it. I'm going to call it HR, even though Greenfield and community has their own HR department, but we still had to do interviews to hire policemen. Fortunately, I was versed in that from here. Designing the budget, I was very well versed in that from designing the budgets for the police department here. So yeah, a lot of it carried over.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like you got a lot of experience. So with that, if you're elected to sheriff, what are your top 2 or top 3 priorities you want to tackle first?
I want to make sure our deputies are taken care of and they've got the proper equipment, proper training. I want to make sure our citizens are protected the proper way. And I want to make sure that we're doing that cost effective, because we're in a time where budgets are getting cut. We're going to have to do more with less. And it's going to take the sheriff and the command team and the help of the deputies to make sure that's done right.
And we're seeing a lot of growth here in Hancock County right now.
Absolutely.
I believe, I don't know, we're one of the fastest growing counties in the state right now. And with growth, I don't know if I can say it or not, but with growth, of course, is going to come more crime, naturally.
Absolutely.
Right? Is there anything that you could do with, how do you see crime trends in Hancock County right now? And based on that, what do you think the sheriff's office should focus on under your administration when combating that?
I absolutely see the crime rates trending up, especially on the western part of the county. I think it's going to be the sheriff's job to make sure that we stay in front of that and we stay properly staffed. In doing that, the sheriff's going to have to work with the council and the commissioners to make sure we're able to do that. As you guys know, the sheriff can only do as much as the council gives them money to do.
Right.
And it's the same way here in the city. You know, the police chief comes in and wants something, the city council can only give them so much. And it's a balance. It's a balance. But there's creative ways to do it. One of the things I want to look at is our shift schedules. You know, if we've got 8 people on day shift and we only need 6 people on day shift, but we need an extra 3 people from 6 p.m. until 2 a.m., we need to look at maybe adjusting those schedules.
And I'm sure your experience with being on city council would it transfer some way over if you are elected sheriff into knowing how to work with the council and helping the sheriff's department?
Absolutely. I've got a good working relationship with a lot of county council members. I'm not saying I know all of them, but a lot of them I have a good working relationship just from one being here my whole life, serving on the Greenfield City Council. But I think going in and communicating with them that won't be a problem. And I think that's what it's going to take is true communication. I think if you go in, for me, doing budget hearings in the city and talking to department heads about their budget, if they truly need it, then we need to find a way to do it. And there is a difference between a need and a want. You know, sometimes the money's there, the wants can be had, but the needs are what we really need to address. And we got to do it without sacrificing our deputy safety and the safety of our citizens.
Absolutely. So being sheriff isn't just about, are there any issues you think get misunderstood by the public that you want to bring to light? And as if you are elected sheriff?
I think a lot of times there's some misconceptions on, why is this deputy sitting in this parking lot? Or why is this deputy stopping me and writing me a ticket? Both of those could be easily justified. One, they're in their cars for 8 hours a day. They may be sitting there doing a report. When I started on the police department, you had to go to the police department to do a report. Now your office is your car. Those deputies never have to get out of their cars if they don't want to. So they very well may be doing a report. I'm going to be honest. They very well may be taking a break and drinking a Pepsi. Who knows? When it comes to traffic enforcement, people get upset. Obviously, if you give me a ticket, I'm not going to be happy about it. But we got to understand why that ticket's being given. It's not necessarily to just pick on you. Traffic enforcement reduces accidents. Sometimes traffic enforcement results in other crimes being detected.
I guess picking up with that, what do you expect from your deputies and your staff? And along with that, how would you describe your leadership style? I know you mentioned that in that position, it's much more management than it is enforcement.
To answer your first question on what I expect out of the deputies and the staff is I want compassionate professionalism. We have some phenomenal deputies, They're trained well. I think we need them to remain professional. We need them to remain compassionate, and that will make us gel better with the citizens in the county. And I'm not saying they don't do that now, but that's one thing I want to see. I want to be the gold standard for sheriff's departments throughout the country. And if I can help our deputies get to the next level, whether it's through training or equipment or whatever, I want to be able to do that. Back to my management style, I like to be collaborative. I don't necessarily feel like my way is always the perfect way. I truly like constructive criticism as long as it's done in a respectful manner. I think that I like to come in and get a second opinion. And the guys that at Greenfield that were on my command staff, I don't want a yes man or a yes woman. I want someone that's going to say, John, that's the craziest idea I've ever heard. Ain't going to work. Well, tell me why it's not going to work. I did this at community. When I first went there, I met with all the officers. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, but tell me how we can fix it. Mm-hmm. And if there's something that can be done, let's do it. But it all comes back to that collaboration and communication.
Right. Yeah, so in training comes up a lot when people talk about law enforcement. What's your view on the current training standards for deputies and jail staff right now? Is there anything new you'd want to bring to that, or?
I don't know right now that there's anything new that I want to bring. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that training stays the forefront of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. I will say training's expensive, but training saves lives, and paying that up front is going to save you on down the road. We hear people all the time, well, all they do is they go to the range and they shoot day in, day out. Well, you know what? That's okay. I want them to be able to shoot well, should they ever have to. I'm a certified instructor through the state of Indiana, through the academy. So I'm very much into training. I think it's an integral part of police work. I think it must continue on at the highest standards we can have. And it's going to make better police officers or sheriff's deputies, and that's going to equate to the citizens having more respect.
Are there any areas in training that you think deserve more attention right now?
Right now, I would say de-escalation and mental health issues.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a great answer. Mm-hmm. So, law enforcement, that sort of ties into our next question, is that law enforcement often responds to a lot of mental health and health-related calls, and we talked about this before the show started, was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but 10 times out of 10, the police will get there before anyone else.
Almost guarantee it. Yes.
Yeah. Is there a way, how should the sheriff's office approach those situations in your view?
We need to approach those situations knowing that not everybody we deal with is a criminal. Okay? We need to be looking at what options are out there for mental health treatment. And we all know that right now, mental health treatment facilities are limited. But I think there's people out there with true mental health emergencies that are in crisis that we need to be able to go in and deal with them as a mental health crisis or emergency and not as a criminal. And I'm going to say I've learned that throughout my career. Didn't always feel that way. Didn't have a true understanding of mental health issues until I went to work at a hospital. I've seen true mental health issues now. They're real. People can be treated. A lot of times people don't know how to get that treatment or where to go to get that treatment. And that should be a service that we try to provide, at least give them options. And jail is not necessarily always that option.
Mm-hmm. And you would be wanting to sort of maybe tackle the problem before it grew into needing to send deputies out to
Absolutely.
The situation.
And we've got a mental health court here in the county that's phenomenal. I think the sheriff needs to work with that and help that move along and keep it working progressively instead of letting it become stagnant. And I think helping treat mental health issues will help our jail population, if that makes any sense at all. Because I think a lot of times people are put in jail because we don't know where else to put them. And I said this when we were talking earlier. I don't feel like anybody wakes up of a morning and says, I want to be an addict. I don't feel like anybody wakes up of a morning and says, I want to be an alcoholic. I don't think anybody wakes up of a morning that says, I want to be homeless. And I'm not saying homeless is a mental health issue. It's not. It can be, but a lot of times it's not. But I think we need to be able to find resources to help those people instead of just throwing them in jail and throwing away the key. That's not the right answer. So I think working with the mental health court, with the mental health providers in the area, it's huge.
Absolutely.
That's got me thinking of another question. I apologize for getting into
No,
the weeds.
that's all right.
But when we talk about de-escalation, especially in situations where the crisis that is happening is mental health, do you believe the training should come from, or I guess the officers should have the training themselves to be able to de-escalate the situation, or should they have an attaché of some kind, a mental health professional to go with them? And granted, may I finish it, that these situations, obviously context matters. Each situation is different.
Absolutely. I think there's times where it's just not practical to have the mental health facilitator there. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I absolutely feel like our deputies, law enforcement in general, should be trained in mental health crisis and how to deal with it. I do feel like that there's sometimes, even though someone is in a mental health crisis, it may turn out bad, and I hate to be that way, but facts are facts. Sometimes these people aren't in their right mind. They don't know what they're doing. I don't want to send a deputy into a position to where they're not going to come home. Our ultimate goal is everybody goes home uninjured, but you got to be realistic. Sometimes that doesn't happen. You want to prevent that occurring, but so I think to answer your question, I think the deputies and law enforcement in general need to be trained in mental health issues and how to deal with it. Would it, in a perfect world, if I could have a mental health professional with me on every call and know that they're not going to get hurt? Absolutely. Yeah. But, if I'm walking into a house with a person with a gun, I'm not going to send that mental health person in there. That's not their job yet. Let's get them into custody, figure out what's going on, and then provide them the help we can provide them.
That makes complete sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. With going back into the growth that Hancock County has seen, that's going to bring a lot more public service calls and everything in general. It's going to put an extra load on the sheriff's department. What are some ways that we can sort of combat the overcrowding or something like that coming into Hancock County? What is a way that... Sorry, cat's got my tongue here. I have the question here. What are some ways that the sheriff can ensure public safety to keep up with the pace of the growth?
A lot of that is going to be communication with the citizens and the residents. It's going to be visibility of the deputies in these. I keep saying the west side of the county, but we can't forget we've got a very rural community on the east side of the county that needs just as much protection. But I think we have to look right now at what is coming into the west side of the county and address that. But I do think, again, that's going to take cooperation between the county council and the sheriff staying in front of our needs. And I do feel like the need for deputies is not a want, it's a need. And we need to stay in front of that growth. Are we going to be perfect at it? Absolutely not. But as long as we're always striving to be better than we were yesterday, then we're successful. Hope that answered your question.
Of course,
it's kind of a long answer.
No, yeah, that answered it perfectly.
Exactly what we're looking for.
You, of course, you have a lot of experience in working with other programs while being the chief of police or the chief at community. What partnerships over the years do you think can have mattered the most over the years and you foresee mattering as sheriff?
I think the number one partnership is between the sheriff and his deputies. Immediately, if not equal to the partnership with the citizens themselves. Okay. I think that being collaborative with other sheriffs around, the police chiefs we have in our county, the police chiefs we have surrounding our county, that's all a bonus. I just did a endorsement with a gentleman running for Hamilton County Sheriff's Department where we've already agreed to support each other. If they need a deputy, we'll send them a deputy if we've got it. If we need a deputy, they'll send us a deputy if we've got it. There's creative ways to do things. So I think it's all communication and collaboration.
Now, we've talked about the less glorious side of it, the management side. From your perspective, oh, sorry, I'm getting a little caught up now. The sheriff also has to manage a budget and be accountable to taxpayers. How do you balance being careful with public dollars and still making sure the county has strong public safety services?
And that goes back to what I said earlier with our needs and our wants. We, at the forefront, we have to make sure our deputies are equipped with the proper equipment. They're treated right. They're paid right. But we've got to do that with an understanding that it's not just a cash cow where money's growing on trees. We got to do it physically responsible. When I was at Greenfield, I was able to cut the budget several times. A couple of times weren't by my choice, but we were able to do it and not reduce services. So you've just got to be creative in the way you do things. Like I said earlier, let's look at how we design our shifts. Just because we've always done it this way doesn't necessarily mean that's the best way to do it tomorrow. So we can always examine that. The sheriff's department or law enforcement in general, they're statistic driven. So we've got data. I can tell you how many calls we took last month. I can tell you where the hot calls were and what time frame they were. That's where we need to concentrate our efforts.
In your opinion, what builds public trust into the sheriff's office, and how would you maintain that trust among the public?
Communication and openness. Simple. We need to go out and I'm going to say I need to go out. The sheriff needs to go out and visit community organizations. They need to be in the additions. They need to be talking to neighborhood groups. They need to be going to churches. I need to find out what you two guys feel like is important and see how I can equate that to law enforcement within the county. In the same way with any other citizen. I feel like every citizen's important. Every citizen has an opinion. If it's something that we can look at and put into motion, it might be the best opinion that's out there. We don't know. I'm one person. Mine may not always be right. Let's look at other ways of doing stuff.
Absolutely. And you've touched on this a little bit, but how important are those other partnerships with local departments or neighboring departments? Like, say, you talked about working with, as the police department, working with other departments like Fortville and Greenfield working together. How important are those partnerships in the long run?
It's huge, huge. When I was on Greenfield, we started, along with several other agencies, the PACE team. They patrolled on the interstate looking for people trafficking drugs. It was a cooperation between several agencies east of our county, went from county line to state line. But I think we're going to need their help, the smaller agencies. They're going to need our help. We need to be able to collaborate and work with them. We currently have the joint task or SWAT team, called SWAT team. It's a combination from officers from all over the county, and it works. It works. So, I don't know that there's one agency better than any other agency. We're all trained. We all work together. I think most people don't necessarily care what color that uniform is when they need that uniform. They just want it.
I think that's how I would probably feel if I was in that accident or something, to someone.
I just want somebody to help me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you're not going to see deputies arguing with police officers. They may, but it's more fun stuff. When a deputy needs help, a policeman's going to help him, and vice versa. When a citizen needs help, we're not going to say, "Oh, that's in the county" or "That's in the city." We're going.
Right.
Jurisdictional lines are for budgets. They're not necessarily for helping people.
Yeah.
When Major, this will be our last, super serious question, and then we've got a few.
Oh, great.
A few.
I'll take them.
Yeah.
So when major emergencies happen, severe weather, large incidents, the sheriff plays a big role. How do you think about preparedness and responses in situations like that?
It all comes back to training, okay? But it also comes back to allowing your people to do their job. I don't need to be out as the sheriff interrupting them. I need to be out there as a support. If you're one of my deputies and you need something and I'm in the command center, I need to try to get it because you need it. Your boots on the ground. You see it firsthand. So That's where I feel it is. We can prepare and train every day for this incident. As soon as this incident happens, it has something thrown into it that nobody ever thought about.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean we should stop trying to be prepared.
It's a great answer. So if you're elected and we're sitting here at the end of your term, what would make you feel like you did a good job as Hancock County Sheriff?
I want the citizens and the deputies to stand back and say he made it better than it was the day he took it over. And I'm going to be honest, I think Sheriff Burkhardt has done a great job. I've talked to Brad. A lot of stuff he's done I want to continue with, but I want to be able to put my fingerprint on it. But I think if the citizens and the deputies are happy with the job I've done, I'll be successful. To take that one step further, we talked about mental health issues earlier. If I have one person in jail that I can help, that they don't come back to jail, or they find a different lifestyle that's better for them, I'm a success.
We ask everyone who comes on what their favorite thing about Hancock County is. What would you say yours is?
This is an important question.
This is an important question.
Yeah.
I think for me is it's still the close-knit feeling that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Our citizens out here are still out to help people. If you're broke down, somebody's going to stop and help you. I read a thing on Facebook today. A lady's daughter drove into a snowdrift and got stuck. First car that passed stopped and tried to help her get out. That's what we want. Mm-hmm. And I think and I'm not trying to be cliche. I just think our community has great people in it that are willing to help their neighbor. A lot of places you don't see that.
Yeah.
A lot of people turn and go the other way. They don't want to get involved. We're pretty fortunate. Our crime rate is not tremendous, and that's our citizens. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that help that.
I would have to agree with you there. I mean, that's probably my favorite thing about the county is just, especially you walk into Walmart and you know everyone there.
Absolutely.
Or something like that. Just knowing everybody, stopping talking to people. There's something about that community feeling that's really special.
Right.
So our last question for you is...
And then I'm going to ask one.
Okay, you're going to ask one. Okay.
You get one.
Yeah. Our last question for you is, what do you want to say to the people of Hancock County here today, and why should they vote for you to become sheriff?
I want to say to the citizens of Hancock County that I look forward to serving them. I have served this community my entire life. I started as a cadet at the Sheriff's Department at 14 years old. I was a volunteer firefighter until I became a full-time policeman. Service is in I want to serve the citizens, okay? Why I think they should vote for me is, as of today, the filing deadline, I'm the only candidate running that has experience in leading a department. I know I'm the only one that has the experience in building a department. I've got experience in budgets, which we've talked about. I've got experience in the management between being the police chief, being the counsel, being the coroner. It's all budget oriented. And I think if you speak with most people that I've dealt with, obviously I've been a policeman 35 years. Not everybody's happy with me. Not everybody's going to be happy with me. But I think the majority of the people would say, he's done a good job as chief of police. I mean, we started a lot of stuff at the police department that, has been good for the citizens. Shop with a Cop, or it's now called Cops for Kids. But we started doing block parties here. It's all getting community involvement.
What is that program? The Shop with a Cop, or the Cops for Kids?
Cops for Kids. Mm-hmm. It's a program that started at the police department years ago where they take needy children shopping. We always took them to McDonald's for breakfast and then took them to Walmart shopping, where we gave them $200 for clothes and $100 for toys. Mm-hmm. It was, I'm not saying citizens didn't donate, but in our donation drives, we went to businesses. Mm-hmm. So it was more of a business drive, but a lot of citizens donated, but we just didn't feel like we wanted to, I don't even want to say burden, that's not the right word, but didn't want to put an extra strain on a citizen when we've got so many businesses in this community that are willing to help. Mm-hmm. That's where we went. Now, I noticed today they're doing a trivia night that's for donations.
What I was going to say was that program has to have a great impact on kids. So I'm guessing the police officers, are they showing up in uniform and doing that with them?
You say it has a great impact on the kids. It does. But it has a huge impact on the officers and the officers' significant others that do it every year. I don't know that you can truly describe the feeling of when a kid walks up and says, "Hey, I want to donate to this." Well, that's a kid that's pretty lucky that's wanting to help a kid that might not be so lucky.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's probably one of my most favorite things I did as a policeman, because the kids are having a great time. And we wouldn't let the parents go. We would go pick the kids up in our police cars, and we had them for 2 or 3 hours, and we took them home to mom and dad. So it was great. I loved that.
Yeah, that's great. You said you had one question for
I do.
us. Okay.
I'm going to throw a twist.
All right.
What do you guys want to see out of your next sheriff?
I'll let you answer first.
So I think what I would want to see is I want someone who is really involved with the community, because I think that's also, like me and you both said about our favorite thing about is the community, being so close together. I think the sheriff can play a big role in kind of keeping it that way.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I want an Andy Griffith sheriff. That would be great though, if you've ever seen that show.
Those days are gone.
Yeah, but I think a sheriff that's very interactive with the community, that would be amazing to see. That I think I want someone very proactive with keeping the community safe. I mean, with the growth we are seeing, I've lived here since I was 10 years old, and I don't really remember there being a lot of crime here at all, and there really isn't right now. Or I don't know if there is, but I don't want to see that sort of come here and start building up here. So if we have a sheriff that's going to squash that before it even starts, or is going to combat that, that's what I would like to see. Those are just two things that,
Yeah, I don't mean to piggyback too much off your answer.
I took you by surprise.
I'd say the biggest aspect for me would be a community-driven sheriff. I see the sheriff as a kind of bridge between the police department as a whole and the community as a whole. As the public representative, the person we see as the authoritarian figure, authoritative.
Not authoritative. We don't need an authoritarian sheriff.
The authority.
Yeah, the authority. And to add on to that too, a sheriff too that also makes, if anyone's coming to our county to sort of maybe want to get up to no good, a sheriff that can, his presence alone sort of combats that with his record as well. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Florida sheriffs I follow on social media.
Absolutely.
I like those guys a lot. I think those videos are awesome. So that's really my answer. One more thing is, can you tell everyone real quick where they can find more information about you and how they can follow along with your campaign?
Yes. Anybody can reach out to me by phone or email. My email is johnjester@myyahoo.com. I will come out. I'll meet with you. Would love to answer anybody's questions. Our webpage will be up and running yet this week. Okay. So I am getting ready to do a meet and greet, March the 1st at the New Palestine Lions Club from 1 to 5. We're going to have music, chili, beans. It'd be a great time for people to come out and at least introduce themselves to me if they have a question. Like I told you guys, I'm not opposed to questions. You guys are the voters. I owe you an answer.
Absolutely. So, John, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I've had fun.
Absolutely. This means a lot. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Gage, you had something to say?
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So, thank you, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.